So thank you for everybody coming this evening. Very happy to be back in person tonight. We started these events, these biannual Spotlight Shelter events, to talk to the community about various things. Tonight, of course, we'll be talking about our homelessness response, but we started these in 2019, and after the pandemic got started, unfortunately, we weren't able to have these in person. But this format has worked really well, where we provide a presentation and then have an opportunity to ask questions from the various people that are involved. Tonight I want to talk a little bit about the format. So I'm welcoming you, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Jeff Knight, and I'm the city manager for the city. And the format tonight, we're going to have each one of our nonprofit partners come up for about 5 minutes each and talk to you about their services, what they provide in the community, and some of the challenges that they face. We'll have a couple members of the city team talking to you about the impacts on our community and the challenges they face. And we'll also hear from our fire department and from our police department. And finally, I'll be back up here talking to you about the homelessness task force that the city convened back in June and what their recommendations are. Some of those or all of the recommendations, actually. There's copies right over here on the side of the table. So with that, I'd like to invite our nonprofit partners up here, and Colleen, if you'd like to go first.
Good evening, I'm Colleen Carmichael. I'm the Executive Director for Quixote Communities. We are building the 30-bed veterans shelter housing that is up just down the street from the YMCA. Our program is a permanent supportive housing program. We are recovery-based, which means in order for you to get into our housing, you have to test clean. Our housing also includes programs that include mental health support for getting employment. And so I think the main thing you should know is this is our third village. We have already another veterans village called Ording Veterans Village, and Dave Redmond, sitting at that table, is the manager of that site, so we can answer questions. Some of the challenges we have faced, I think the largest challenge is mental health. As you can imagine, the people coming into our housing are at the high end of the need spectrum, and we are not licensed mental health professionals, but we are working very diligently to hire them and also to partner with the behavioral health suppliers in your city. We have been very successful and have graduated 59 of our residents into full-time housing with vouchers. So if you have any questions, please feel free to come over and see the two of us. We have a bunch of information to pass out. I have my card with my personal cell phone on there, so please do contact us. We're trying to be as transparent as we can, and we're very sorry that this has taken us so long to get this project going. But we're very proud to be partnered with Forma. Forma Construction is our partner, and Graydon Holden is here too. He will answer any questions about the construction. So I will pass the mic now on to, who is this, Hot Potato or Susan? Your turn. Come on up here, sister. And also thank you to our other partners in the homeless services agencies. We're really grateful to be supported by them. So.
Hi, I'm Susan Kirchhoff. I am the co-founder and executive director of the Youth Connection. We are a very new organization. We're just 4 years old. We saw a need in the community with our youth homeless population, which is the second largest growing population in the United States. It's across the nation. We currently started with just a drop-in center in downtown Shelton. We now have two, one in Belfair and one here, which is made and designed to work with our at-risk youth. We have 3 off-site shelters where we can serve up to 12 young people who are literally homeless. And from the conception of the Youth Connection, we've signed up 178 young people who were considered literally homeless. So that's a lot of people when you think about it. Of that number, we've been able to successfully house 76 of them through our offsite shelter program. Most of them have ran through our offsite shelter. We have a stay of about 6 to 9 months. We teach them life skills. A lot of our young people do not have that, so that's one of our goals, is to really teach them. You think it comes naturally, but truly it doesn't. The reason I got into this is I've been homeless. I was homeless as a kid, I was homeless as a teen, and I was homeless as an adult with 4 children. So it's a passion. We got into it because of that. Our young people did not wake up one morning and say, I want to be homeless. And I agree with Colleen, the mental health issues that are in our community are huge. And we are all trying to work to solve that problem and work together. And I think we came up with a great comprehensive project. So thanks so much. And I will pass it to Tanya. Oh, and I'll be in the back too, so you can ask me questions later. I'm not a big mic person. I talk so darn loud, people usually just listen to my fat mouth. So I guess I'm probably going to be the chatty one because I hold the biggest umbrella in the community. I first came into homelessness. My background is healthcare. I was headhunted for this position. I thought, you people are out of your mind, let's be honest. My impression of homelessness was the guy on the corner with the sign. I was raised by a contractor that taught me you work hard for what you want, and I thought, man, you need to work, get to work. And I will say my very first 6 months with Crossroads Housing was a kick in the face. It's not what we really have going on in our community. As of today, we have 242 people that are literally homeless in our community, on the streets. And of that, 110 are under the age of 18. It's a lot of children. So what we do with Crossroads, we have a lot. So I run 4 family homeless shelters. I think the biggest misconception about our community is that to come into our shelter programs, or to come into any of our programs, is that you must be a parent or a family, which is not true. We only serve families in the 4 homeless shelters, but the other programs that we operate are transitional housing. So we have 21 rentals in the community that is this stepping stone between shelter life and housing independence. We master lease those properties and intensively case manage those to get them on the road to housing independence. Aside from that, we run rapid rehousing programs, which would be housing people into homes that are literally homeless. We run prevention programs, which would be if someone has an eviction notice or a 14-day pay or vacate to prevent them from going on the streets. We use diversion money, which would be diverting people from homelessness. This could be buying boots so a gentleman could start a new job and pay his own rent. It could be reunification for a family member that lives in North Carolina. It's pretty flexible, but it's really just to try to prevent from going to the streets. We are the keepers of emergency rental assistance, which would be for people that couldn't pay their rent during COVID-19. And then we're also the keepers of the treatment sales tax funding, which is for mental health and drug addiction, to make sure that they don't return back to the streets. So we're pretty busy. Aside from just those funding sources, we are the lead for coordinated entry. Any funding source in our community, probably safe to say, for homelessness has to be run through the coordinated entry system. So that would be the process of an intake. So when somebody comes into an intake process, it's what's your barriers to housing independence, and how can we help you overcome those barriers? It could be mental health, it could be drug addiction, it could be finances, it could be pretty much anything. Education, jobs, whatever. So what we do is we partner with people in our community to see how we can overcome that and help people become independent and not return back to homelessness. So it's a long process, and there's a lot of moving wheels, so it's kind of hard to give a quick elevator speech. But I will be available for questions as well. I don't know if there's any other data you want. I got a lot of data stuff.
Hello everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is Athena Ayers and I am the Executive Director of Community Lifeline. Before I get started, let me just say how happy I am to see such a room full of people and how much you guys care about our community and to be here, so thank you. Each of your guys' opinions and input absolutely matters, and it's just great to see this many people here, so thank you. Community Lifeline is the only low-barrier emergency shelter for single adults in Mason County. We typically serve about 300 people a year, although this year that has been reduced due to funding and staffing shortages. So we have seen about 191 people this year, and I have some numbers here to share with you too. 67% of that 191 people reported having a disability, 54% of those people reported having at least one chronic health condition, and more than half of those people reported having a substance use or mental health disorder. So I'm kind of piggybacking on the need for mental health and substance use support, but I'm also pointing out that sometimes with our homeless population, we're not just dealing with the need for homes, we're dealing with the need for mental health services, substance use services. People are in dire need of better health care, medicine or medication regimens and those sorts of things. And so it's really important that we provide supportive services in addition to shelter. And that's what Community Lifeline does as well. We offer case management, we offer certified peer counseling, we offer crisis intervention and de-escalation, we offer the community meal programs, and we are also super excited to announce the launch of Mason County's very first Recovery Cafe happening in January of 2023. And that will kind of encompass a whole bunch of different services for folks that are struggling with a variety of different needs. And a portion of what that looks like is to address the needs for mental health and substance use and health care. We have partnered with Peninsula Community Health Services to provide mobile health clinics for primary care. We have partnered with Metrics Treatment Services to provide mental health and substance use disorder telehealth services, to include psych evaluations and medication refills and med management. We have partnered with Northwest Resources, Quixote Communities. We've partnered with Washington Healthcare Authority, the Recovery Cafe Network. We have a huge amount of support to be able to provide 12-step groups and supportive services, not just for recovery of substances, but also just recovery of anything in general that a person might identify with. And that can be domestic violence and sexual assault, that can be mental health, it's a variety of different things. So we're excited to be, a part of this big team. Not one entity or not one person is going to be able to solve the homelessness issue. And so it's a huge honor to be with some amazing resources over here, working with folks, and we have an amazing relationship with our city, our police department, and our first responders as well, so thank you.
Thank you, Athena, and everybody for presenting that information. I'd like to turn it over to Mark Ziegler. He's our Director of Parks, Recreation, and Facilities.
Thanks, Jeff. Again, Mark Ziegler, newly, appointed Parks, Recreation and Facilities Director. Served about 6 years as Community Development Director and then various positions in my 28 plus years in the city of Shelton. So a little bit of institutional knowledge here at the city and a lot of experience with growing up here in this community as well. I started in the mid-'80s with Mason County Parks, and we talk about the impacts of maybe homelessness or misuse in our parks, which I like to call it, because I think there's some misuse and vandalism that is much more of an impact of some of our facilities and some of the homeless impacts that we're seeing today. We had the unfortunate event in our community with a young man that passed away recently, and the group of friends that he hung around with started memorializing him in one of our parks. That included tagging the picnic shelter, the restroom, vandalizing some of the facility. And that's cost us probably close to $2,000 in the last couple of weeks, which is greater than what we see from our homeless community right now, which is basically picking up garbage and clearing out some vacant campsites and things like that. We manage about 118 acres of park properties. You're familiar with Neyland Park and Callan Park and Loop Field and those facilities like that. The Teresa Johnson Trail falls within the park's purview as well. We also maintain this building, the library, the museum, and some other public facilities around town as well. And we do that with about 8 FTEs with our custodial staff and our maintenance staff, but about 3 FTEs within our parks for 118 acres, including 3 public restrooms, several playgrounds, and those types of facilities and ball fields that take a lot of maintenance and a lot of activity for us to keep them safe and in good working condition. Back in 2019, we passed the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Plan. One of the highest priorities we saw from that plan was increased sanitary conditions, maintenance of our facilities, cleanliness, and so we reacted to that. We hired another staff person within our Parks Department. They actually work weekends, so in 2019, we brought a staff person on Friday through Monday. They were the 410 shift, where previously we didn't have our public restrooms open, we didn't provide much maintenance outside of the summer months when we hire seasonal employees. And if anybody's worked with seasonal employees, it's kind of hit and miss, right? They're not the highest trained, not the highest maybe motivated staff at all times. So you're supplementing with folks that probably aren't our full trained staff. So now we have those folks on staff year round. The bathrooms at Callan Park, Loop Field, and Neyland Park are open year round, 7 days a week. We provided that amenity to our community. I think it's relieved some of the pressure downtown, but we obviously close them at night. Back in the 90s, we didn't close our park restrooms and park facilities, and they experienced some vandalism, but that certainly has increased over the years of my time here in the city. So we are now closing those at dusk when the parks close, and then opening again at daylight hours. Let's see. I'll get to you in a few minutes, all right? So right now we keep some stats on what garbage and maintenance and those types of activities, and some of the stats we've been able to develop lately as far as what might be homeless activities that we have in our parks. And this includes the Teresa Johnson Trail, Brewer Park, and some of the facilities downtown. We're spending about 40 hours a month picking up maybe some campsites and debris that's left around that we can attribute to maybe some of the homeless activities. That we know there's an old bedroll that's really wet, or a tent that's been broken up, or a shopping cart full of whatever it might be that's been left for several days. It certainly is garbage and not somebody's personal belongings. That leads to about 40 yards, close to it sometimes. It really adds up. And the cost is about somewhere between $2,000 and $2,500 a month in our staff time and our dump fees to account for those impacts that we're seeing there. Again, we have to use a little bit of experience to extrapolate what we might be considering, impacts for homeless or just general abuse or misuse or just daily use as well within our facilities. We certainly have taken also some roles to minimize some of this with some of our landscaping, removal of underbrush, the Birch Street Trail, which is adjacent to the Teresa Johnson Trail, and then the entrance to the Teresa Johnson Trail, and limbing up some trees, removing some of the barriers to sight lines where people might feel comfortable, in camping out or hanging out or doing some of the things that they really shouldn't be doing when they're camping or not. And then also adding some light fixtures to some of our restrooms and some of our shelter facilities as well. Make it more visible for our police force, and communicating with our police department on a regular basis to help out in keeping our facilities safe and maintained. So that is all I have for you tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Chief Snyder.
Hi there. My name is Chief Snyder, Jeff Snyder with Central Mesa Fire and EMS. I'm pleased that we were asked to come today to discuss this because the homeless and substance abuse, mental health issues absolutely affect our organization on a daily basis. In 2017, between 2017 and now, our 40% of our calls, or we had a 40% increase in calls that have to do with mental health incidents, mental health issues. Our crews aren't really trained for that. Our crews are firefighters and paramedics. They're trained for first aid. They're trained to deal with fires and paramedics and so forth. But we're out there with our partners in law enforcement. Oftentimes we're the first contact with law enforcement or before law enforcement gets there. And our crews oftentimes have to try to figure out how to deal with that. That's a large impact on us. Substance abuse is probably the next thing that we deal with the most that has to do with that affects homelessness. Now, I'm not saying everybody that's homeless has substance abuse issue or mental health issues, but a lot of the people that we deal with do. And so our substance abuse rate of people that we deal with addictions has gone up 50% since 2017. Again, not something that we have tons and tons of training with. Our paramedics and firefighting training doesn't really help us a lot with that. So we're working on some alternatives to help our crews with that. The area between Post Office Park, Brewer Park, and the area around the Community Lifeline Center and the Sheriff's Office, just in 2021 we responded to 200 incidents alone just in that area. So that's a large portion of our call volume just goes to that 1.5-2 block area. Mostly those are individuals asking for help. I do want to back up a little bit and say that when I mentioned Community Lifeline, the folks at Community Lifeline and working Community Lifeline, we don't go into the facility there very often. They're really very good with dealing with those folks. And when we do, it's usually for incidents such as flu or someone's sick. These are people that are outside of that area that we end up having to deal with. And some of those people aren't allowed into shelters because of the substance abuse, because of some of the mental health issues. So our folks have to deal with that. The biggest thing that we deal with is a lot of the homeless folks and individuals that have substance abuse issues and so forth, they don't have transportation by the nature of they're homeless. They don't have the ability to get to a doctor. So a lot of times our medic units and our firefighters and EMTs become the point of contact for their primary medicine. And our system is not designed for that. We're designed to deal with emergencies. We're designed to deal with heart attacks and injuries and so forth. And our crews oftentimes will get a patient sometimes in the back of our medic units, and we literally have no place to take them. When I was a battalion chief, I get calls from my crews. It's like, hey, we've got this individual in the back of our medic unit, and nobody will take them. What do you want me to do? And I'm like, find somebody to take them. We have to get you back in service. And we have units going to Tacoma. We have units going to Bremerton. We have units going because the hospital's here, because of the fact they're full, or the treatment they need isn't there. We end up taking them to those other facilities. That's time that our units are out of service. We have 4 medic units that cover about 750 square miles. They run about 9,000 calls a year. So taking those units out of service for that length of time is highly impactful on us. Most of the issues that we deal with are issues such as infections, chronic illness, no access to their diabetes medication, no access to their blood pressure medication. They don't have the ability to get to there. They call us. Again, we're not really designed to kind of deal with that. During the day, it's not as bad. Our partnerships that these individuals are out here, they've been talking today, they're great to help us out with that. But at 2 o'clock in the morning, it gets a lot harder for us. The last thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is effect on the crews. Now, by no means do I think my crews have it harder than the homeless folks, that's for sure, or the people with substance abuse or mental health issues. But I'll give you a little quick story. When I was working as a battalion chief a year ago, my crews called me at 2 in the morning, right after Christmas time. It was about a week into January. Christmas lights were still up downtown. It was about 34 degrees and raining, like you know what, outside. And then they called me because they're with an individual who has no place to go. So I get on scene, we talk, we start thinking about a plan. We call everybody. Everybody we can think of, we call. The shelters are full because it's cold. Everybody's full. They can't take them. He had some mental health issues, so there were some facilities that would like to have taken him, but because of their policies, which I completely understand, they can't. My crews and I don't really know what to do with him. Our concern is if we leave him till morning, he won't be alive in the morning. That's our concern. And my crews wrestle with this, and I wrestle with this. We called churches. We even called people that we knew had homes that we thought might take them, and we could not find anybody. So we eventually left the individual with the plastic bags that covered the blankets that we used to put our disposal blankets in, and we left them with as many disposable blankets as we had in our bags. And we left. And got back to the station. And the firehouse culture is that the kitchen table is where we kind of get rid of a lot of that stuff that we deal with on a daily basis. So at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, we're sitting around drinking a cup of coffee, talking about this. My crews are still talking about that to this day. And we don't know what happened to the individual. By morning, he wasn't there anymore. So I think this homeless problem that we're dealing with is incredibly complicated. And I most certainly do not have the answers. I know that the committee's trying to put some things together. There's some wonderful organizations out there that are trying to put things together. But it's highly impactful on all of us. And the cost is, for us, Medicutes are not they're not a cost-efficient way to manage people's health care, I can tell you that. So we've got to come up with some different answers. So, I wanted to pass it on to you folks. I appreciate everybody that's working real hard for this. And I'll be back here. Jeff and I, we color coordinated. We both wore white shirts today. So I'll be back here somewhere, and I'm more than happy to answer any of the questions. But thank you for your time.
Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chris Gossett. I'm the captain with the Shelton Police Department, and I appreciate you all being here tonight. First of all, I want to give thanks to our resource partners that showed up this evening to show you all the great things they're doing in our community, from the Youth Connection, Crossroads, Community Lifeline here tonight. In addition, Mason County Public Health is in the back there, and also Public Health Recovery, and all the DCRs that come out and help us on a day-to-day basis with all the numerous problems we have associated with our homeless community. We do realize that homelessness is not a crime, but it is a symptom of other issues, and we realize it affects businesses and all the community members involved. Whether it's drug abuse, alcohol abuse, or mental health issues, we appreciate our resource partners and collaborating with us. We appreciate the programs and their ability to think outside the box to get the people the help they need. One thing I want to touch light on real quick is a case law that goes back to Boise, Idaho. It's called Martin versus Boise. Came out in 2018, went up to the U.S. Court of Appeals in the 9th District. And what that means for us is we are part of the 9th District. There's 9 states on the western coast, and we are part of it. So laws that are upheld and passed up through the Court of Appeals apply to us as well. And I just want to read you one excerpt from their decision in this case. And this was regarding Mr. Martin, who was a homeless individual arrested. The option of sleeping indoors. The government cannot criminalize indigent homeless people for sleeping outdoors on public property on the false premise that they had the choice in the matter. So that brings into light what we are experiencing in Shelton. We have quite a few homeless people within the city, and what we see out there from day to day is they're camping in our parks, they're camping on the sidewalks. But you also remember when I'm referring to camping, that means overnight. That doesn't mean from a day to day, they're hanging out for the day, they're hanging on our sidewalk. We have other ways we can deal with that issue. But when it comes to the nighttime, overnight camping, we have to abide by certain constrictions of this law. First and foremost, if I have an officer go and make contact with this individual, we have to establish that there is another place for him to go. Generally, that means within this community is we're going to call a community lifeline see if they have any open beds, and if they do so, we're gonna try and facilitate to get that person into a bed for the night. But in the event that Community Lifeline or some other facility doesn't have room for this individual, then we can't do anything for this person unless we find some other means. But generally, we can't arrest them, we can't kick them off the property. We have to let them be and move on to the next call. We'll move on to the jail, just to let you know what's going on. We still subscribe, or we still put people into the Mason County Jail. And currently we have 7 beds leased by the city. But the ability to fill those beds depends on certain criteria. That includes mental health, medical needs, and also it could include multiple warrants for different courts. And what that means when I say that is that we typically arrest, when we typically arrest somebody, it's very likely that they're going to have warrants out of other jurisdictions. But the one I'm talking about is within Mason County Superior District and Municipal Court. And so if that comes in play, then it's highly likely that the jail is not able to hold them due to the facility limits over their ability. And just to bring in light, this just actually similar circumstance just happened 1 week ago. It was a Mason County Deputy Sheriff, so I'm not trying to bomb on that or anything like that. We're all in the same situation. But he took an individual to jail. He had 5 warrants for his arrest. Superior, District, Municipal Court warrants. And if you are familiar with our court system, you know Superior Courts, those are felony warrants. So when he took him into the jail, unfortunately the jail staff couldn't accept him and they released him. Another unfortunate part of this whole circumstance is prior to being taken into custody and transported to jail and the attempted booking, the arrestee told the deputy, "You're not going to be able to book me. You're not going to be able to hold me. They're going to let me go." He already knew it before he got there that he was going to walk out the door as soon as he got there. And that's an unfortunate thing because a lot of the people out there with warrants or committing crimes in our community know that holding them accountable is going to be very, very hard for us to do at this current time. But despite the speed bumps and roadblocks, the Shelton Police Department is still committed to providing great service to all. I want to highlight something that happened a couple months ago that involved Sergeant Lawson, who's standing in the back there. He was called to Community Lifeline regarding a 19-year-old male who showed up on their property. He was developmentally delayed, as I understand it, and when he arrived, he made contact with that individual and discovered that his mother had just died. He was inadequately clothed, didn't have any shoes, didn't have anything for him. Sergeant Lawson took it upon himself to go up to Walmart, get him some shoes, get him some clothes. I think he even got him a toy or something like that. Took it to him, and in addition to that, Sergeant Lawson contacts the Youth Connection and OCCU, who's been a great partner to us for all these years, in getting him more assistance for getting clothing and hygiene items. And this young man is now in a home where his medical needs are being met, and it's a safe place for him. Sergeant Lawson is one. Sergeant Lawson is one of many at Shelton PD who continually give back to the community to which they serve. Police officer stories are often untold, but this one illustrates the dedication of the Shelton Police Department had for the community and all its members. Shelton PD and Mason County Sheriff's Department both equally care for the community and the safety and interests of all its members. We have teamed up with the assistance of other law enforcement partners and are working together closely to look for better solutions to enhance the safety of our community. Last, we are close to achieving a short-term solution for our jail needs and being able to book and hold people accountable. But this is a short-term solution, and we will still need to find a long-term solution for the Shelton community. Thank you for your time and your shared interest in this community. Thank you.
So, thank you. I wanted to make sure that we highlight each of the stories tonight, not only from our nonprofit partners and service providers that are attempting to address this issue, but also from our operational side, our fire department, our police department, our parks and facilities. This issue has an impact on all of us, and we are very cognizant of that. We are aware of it, and we're doing what we can to address the issue. As part of that, in late May, the city council asked me to convene a homelessness task force. That task force started in June, and we wanted to make sure as part of that task force, we had as many diverse perspectives as we could get, so that we heard from all segments of the community in order to make recommendations to council. So if you were part of that task force and you're here tonight, please raise your hand. I want to make sure you're recognized and people know who participated. There's a couple other folks that aren't able to be here tonight that wanted to mention. Mary Eagleson was part of our task force as the citizens representative. Holly Cahoon was part of the task force as a business representative in downtown, along with a couple of the other folks here tonight. But the recommendations of that task force wrapped up today, and we're going to take those recommendations to City Council sometime in November, and Council will consider that as part of their decision-making process and how to implement the recommendations they made. We do have the handouts that I mentioned earlier. I hope most of people got those, but just real quickly, I wanted to run through what those recommendations are. The first is for a mitigation site, and a location on that hasn't been decided, but that will be up to council discussion and looking at all the options that are available in our community to site that facility. Support for grant applications for our community partners. So when they are looking for additional funds from the state, the federal government, the county, the city, what have you, making sure that we're supportive of those grant applications so they can help address the needs in our community. Storage lockers is another one. One of the big issues that we see is people using shopping carts and those kind of things to keep their belongings with them because they're afraid of those belongings being stolen or going missing or those types of things. So making sure that we provide a secure facility for them to store their personal belongings, medications, that was mentioned in a couple of the stories tonight. Public dashboards on the city's website, so anybody will be able to see how many beds are available in the community on any given day. And finally, long-term support for affordable housing. Because if you have a mitigation site, and that's one piece of the Martin V. Boise decision that Captain Costa mentioned, but you don't provide that step up in a way for people to move forward out of that mitigation site, all you end up with is a mitigation site that continues to grow. And that's not something that I think would be acceptable to anybody, including the people who would make use of that mitigation site. So, again, going back to what I mentioned before, the format for tonight, we wanted to make sure that people have the opportunity to have one-on-one conversations or small group conversations with all of the folks that presented tonight, along with our city council. So, over here at this table, at the far end of the room, our nonprofit providers, the ladies that you heard speak tonight, and the people that are helping them can talk about their services and answer any questions that you might have about that end. Our city council members are in the back, and they're available to answer questions, and our city staff team will be over here at these tables along with our partners at Central Basin Fire. So please, any questions you have, provides an opportunity for follow-up if something comes to mind later. I know that's always a concern. I should have thought to ask that. We'll be here until 8 o'clock. So come ask us questions. We'll be able to answer or try to answer whatever questions you might have. Thank you very much for coming. Really appreciate it.